Humanity goes about its usual life while, in the White House, important political issues are being resolved. Beyond its walls, ordinary people make plans for tomorrow, unaware of the changes that await them. But one single morning changes everything. For reasons unknown, all carriers of the Y chromosome in the city suddenly die. In other words, every male living creature, from animals and birds to men, perishes, including the president of the country. The only surviving males are a young would-be magician with no real talent named Yoro Brown and his pet monkey, Capucina Erison. In case of emergency, Regina Oliver would assume the presidency. However, at the moment of catastrophe, she was abroad, and no word has been heard from her since. Naturally, the void of leadership has dire consequences. Riots break out in the city as panic-stricken women begin destroying everything around them, not knowing how to go on living. Tension mounts inside the White House as staff realize that in 2 weeks they will be entirely trapped. Coal and clean water supplies will run out. Food will soon be gone. Animals can no longer reproduce, and building sufficient reserves in time is simply impossible. And this isn't just about one city. It will affect the entire world. Senator Jennifer Brown takes charge of leadership. Soon she is approached by Agent Sarah Bergen, a member of the President's Secret Task Force 355. Sarah explains she was sent here because of a real threat, but had no time for detailed instructions on her new mission. Meanwhile, Yoro remains holed up in his apartment to avoid becoming the target of desperate women. But as supplies begin to dwindle, he decides to leave a note for his girlfriend and venture out to assess the situation. At the same time, Senator Brown sends Sarah on a mission to find her daughter, Hiro, who has made no contact since the disaster. But Yoro is in no hurry to hide in a safe place. He travels instead to a refugee center to help those in need, including the wife of his deceased lover. After that, Yoro returns to the hideout where his friends are gathered. At first glance, it seems there are still some surviving men in the city, but it quickly becomes clear these men were born in female bodies and have transitioned via hormone therapy. Therefore, the mysterious plague had no effect on them. In New York City, evacuation begins, and heavy military vehicles patrol the streets. Yoro must hide to avoid capture by the military, yet he manages to slip into a local bar to leave another message for his girlfriend, still hopeful she is alive and will find her way home upon seeing his autograph. Yoro gets away unnoticed, but this time things don't go as planned. Capucina escapes, forcing Yoro to chase him. The restless monkey descends into a flooded subway and vanishes into the filthy water, filled with corpses of the dead. Fighting his disgust, Yoro decides to follow him, unwilling to lose his only friend. For a moment, he thinks he sees another living man nearby, but when he shines his flashlight, there's nothing but dirty water. After emerging from the water, Yoro slips into a clothing store to change, but doesn't remain hidden. Shopkeepers catch sight of the naked stranger and freeze in shock. One woman suggests capturing him and turning him over to the authorities for a hefty reward, but ultimately, feeling pity, they let Yoro go and give him a clean outfit. The stress Yoro has endured almost drives him mad. Watching videos on his phone, he remembers the day Iran came into his life, and upon hearing his friend's voice, the little monkey emerges from hiding. The pair return home and feel safe there, until Yoro hears the door open. Realizing he was mistaken about being alone, he must defend himself. Armed with a guitar and hiding around a corner, he has no chance to strike. Sarah proves faster and stronger, disarms Yoro, and after a few hours turns him over to his mother, Senator Brown. The pilots who brought Yoro to the White House are locked up. Sarah explains they need rest after a long flight, but everyone understands the real reason. No one must learn that the new president's son has survived, or suspicions of conspiracy could spark even greater chaos. Yoro himself is not happy about the situation. After resting briefly from all that has happened, he decides to look around, nearly walking into disaster. In an abandoned office, he is discovered by Mara, the widow of the late president. Jennifer and Sarah arrive just in time and manage to make it look as if Mara is suffering a mental collapse. Meanwhile, Yoro manages to hide, but the threat looming over the conspirators grows, and Sarah insists that the boy must be moved out of the White House. The late president's daughter tries to learn exactly what her mother saw that night. Jennifer assures the girl it was nothing more than a hallucination, but Kimberly suspects President Brown is lying. Jennifer Brown instructs her aides to find a geneticist who can examine Yoro and discover what happened on the planet and why he and Capacina survived. The president plans to bring specialists to the White House, but Sarah remains firm. It's far too dangerous and they must get Yoro out of the city. The agent is ready to undertake this risky mission, but must do so as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, in Israel, an injured woman regains consciousness and, learning that all the men on Earth have died, declares she must now claim the presidency of the United States. Nora Brady, a former presidential advisor, is forced to wander with her young daughter Mackenzie after losing her husband and sons and being left without means to survive. Nora struggles to pull herself together, but ultimately resolves to fight to save herself and her daughter. News arrives at the White House that Regina Oliver, the leading presidential candidate, is alive. This causes a split among the staff. Some remain loyal to Jennifer Brown, others side with Regina Oliver. Given the situation, Jennifer has no choice but to agree with Sarah and allow her son to be transferred somewhere safer. Sarah recruits the pilots who previously transported Yoro, motivating them with heroic stars and promises of eternal glory if they succeed. The only way to smuggle Yoro out of the building in secret is in a vehicle loaded with corpses. The boy tries to refuse and think of another plan, but Sarah is resolute. They cannot risk anything, and he will have to endure it. The agent succeeds in smuggling Yoro out and transfers him to a helicopter. She intends to pilot it herself. A second helicopter, carrying exclusively women, flies ahead as a decoy. However, as soon as the helicopters gain altitude and disappear from sight, the escort chopper loses control and explodes in a fiery rain of debris. The sight horrifies Yoro, but Sarah remains calm, knowing that was the price for the pilot's silence. After several hours of flight, Sarah and Yoro land in a forest for a brief rest. The agent, unable to bear the smell, asks the boy to strip. After traveling with corpses, he stinks terribly, and it would be better to wash his clothes before continuing. Meanwhile, Yoro's sister, Jiro, sets out to find a safe place accompanied by her friend, a trans man. Along the way, they stop at a looted store hoping to find food, but instead encounter Nora and Mackenzie, frightened. Examining the girl's leg, Jiro notes a severe infected wound and asks Nora's permission to administer first aid so they can keep moving. Back in the forest, Sarah and Yoro's camp is attacked by a band of savage looters. Sarah tries to distract and calm them, but to avoid any risk, Yoro puts on a mask and brandishes a stick to scare the women away. Fearing they might ruin her plan, the unexpected guests depart, but Sarah and Yoro decide not to stay. They head for the nearest town, where they trade a helicopter generator and a pair of grenades for a motorcycle. While Sarah inspects and tunes the bike, Yoro, forgetting all safety rules, runs into a deserted square, convinced he saw his girlfriend Bet among the crowd. This foolish act leads him into a trap. He is surrounded by female police officers who rip off his mask and discover his secret. Sarah must intervene to protect her companion. After fighting the officers, she manages to drag Yoro away. But as soon as they escape, she halts the bike to scold him and remind him of the mission's importance, a mission he nearly sabotaged. Meanwhile, Jiro, her friend, and their new companions find refuge for the night in an abandoned women's shelter. Nora confides to Jiro that her daughter has medical problems and needs antibiotics, but pharmacies have been looted long ago and houses are empty. Gripped by fear and helplessness, Nora goes outside so her daughter won't see her tears. But outside, she faces a new trial. Women on horseback appear in the courtyard, claiming to be the rightful owners of the house and hardly pleased by the arrival of uninvited guests. The rest of the visitors are quickly discovered as well. The horsewomen lead them to the stables to dispose of this extra mouth to feed. However, Nora notices something that could save them. One of the riders is wounded, and Nora asks Jiro to examine the girl and provide aid. Jiro does her best, but the bullet wound is too grave and there is nothing available except adhesive tape and rubber gloves. Hours of improvised surgery bring no improvement. The girl's condition worsens, and the leader of the women's band, Roxanne, decides to end her suffering. To Nora's surprise, Roxanne proves kind and understanding. She invites the guests to stay the night in her home and promises to provide the antibiotics Mackenzie needs. As the group follows Roxanne, Jiro realizes the antibiotics are only a small part of what the band controls. They own an entire mall stocked with supplies. Meanwhile, Sarah and Yoro continue their journey toward Boston, hoping to find geneticist Allison Mann. But at the city's edge, they encounter a heavily guarded military checkpoint armed with tear gas. Sarah proposes splitting up. She will distract the soldiers while Yoro and Cappuccina sneak around the blockade. Upon meeting the Boston colleagues, Sarah quickly realizes that the absence of men has not rid the world of crime. Rebel groups constantly attack Harvard trying to find answers. The plan works. While Sarah keeps the soldiers occupied, Yoro sneaks into the headquarters building to hide. However, there he falls into the hands of rebels, at risk of exposure. But fortunately, they mistake him for a trans person and let him go, even telling him where to find his people, get needed hormones, and hide. Finally, Yoro and Sarah locate Allison Mann's apartment and then her Harvard office. The geneticist is not pleased to see strange visitors, but the moment Yoro removes his mask, she immediately understands why they are there. Yet it is impossible to work at Harvard. There is no equipment or biological samples, so she suggests the only option is to travel to San Francisco to use the lab there. Sarah agrees to undertake another dangerous trip, but secretly sabotages her radio, cutting off her only line of contact with the White House. Later, she uses the radio's malfunction as an excuse to leave and asks Yoro to watch over the geneticist while she finds another way to communicate. Meanwhile, political power struggles resume, but not everyone is focused on them. One of Jennifer Brown's aides, Christine, falls ill and fears she has lost her baby. An ultrasound reveals the opposite. The pregnancy is advancing, and it is very possible the child is male. Sarah bursts into a stranger's home and discovers the homeowner is as skilled and dangerous as the secret agent herself. A fight breaks out between the two women, but once they talk, they realize they both work for the same organization and came for the same reason, to find the homeowner and shoot her. Upon learning of the helicopter accident, Jennifer is deeply worried, but Christine tries to calm her. The search team reports they found only 2 pilots' bodies. Relief is short-lived, as the president realizes Sarah most likely orchestrated the crash to eliminate unnecessary witnesses. A terrible thought crosses his mind. His son is in the company of a dangerous criminal, and no one knows what she might do to him. Regina Oliver, the leading presidential candidate, is brought to the White House. Seizing this opportunity, Kimberly begins planning a coup to get rid of hated Jennifer Brown. Meanwhile, Allison Mann confesses to Yoro she doesn't trust the success of her research. She doesn't know if they will have the resources to discover why the men died, or if it will even be possible to revive the male species. One thing is certain, difficult times lie ahead for both Yoro and his handler. Soon they themselves will become experimental subjects. Sarah returns to the office and proposes they set out. She lies to Yoro, claiming she has spoken to his mother, and now they have permission to travel to San Francisco. The trio embarks on their journey, unaware a military patrol is already circulating the city with Sarah's photo. As the women await a safe window between gas launches, Yoro decides to visit the place the rebels told him about. A transgender community where he can remove his mask and show his true face without fear. Sarah is furious at Yoro's last maneuver, but soon it becomes clear the real threat is not him, it is her. The patrol arrives at the community and displays her photo. The trio barely escape the hunter's grasp and hide in a church, where Sarah is forced to admit she has no communication with the White House and has been making all decisions on her own. Meanwhile, Jiro, her friend, and Nora, with her daughter, continue living in Roxanne's commune. At first glance, it seems they have found a true paradise: food, medicine, and security. But when Nora tries to remove her daughter from another radical feminist meeting, Roxanne flies into a rage. She reminds them they are guests and must obey her rules and listen to everything she says. Roxanne spares no effort to make young Mackenzie hate men and join her movement. Another meeting is interrupted by a battle alarm. The women quickly erect barricades and arm themselves to defend the supermarket. The attackers turn out to be a small group of desperate women with a child. Roxanne goes out to meet them, but she no longer accepts outsiders. Even a child awakens no sympathy, and she drives the refugees away, refusing to help them. Meanwhile, Allison discovers among Sarah's things a wanted poster for the agent. She suggests Yoro should flee to avoid being endangered by Sarah, but the boy refuses to betray his friend, though he knows she is hiding something from them. That night, Roxanne gathers her community for a kind of celebration. At the start of the ceremony, she tells the crowd about Laura, one of the movement's members. At first, everything seems innocent, but as the celebration progresses, Jiro and her companions begin to feel something very strange is happening. First, they douse Laura with dirt, then immerse her in a bathtub, and when she rises, they all call her a new name, Athena. All this is extremely unsettling. Sam, the trans friend, leaves the hall. One of the movement's members follows him to warn him not to confront Roxanne, but instead he only gets into trouble. He is immediately summoned for a meeting back at the White House. Jennifer receives a report that the search party has located Sarah and is preparing an ambush. The president begins to worry that the searchers might also find his son. By then, Allison has managed to convince Yoro to leave, and the pair escape into the forest. The tension rises as trackers try to catch up with Yoro and Allison, but Sarah neutralizes the soldiers and destroys their radios, cutting off the signal to the White House. That night, Nora wakes to the sound of screams. Trying to stay quiet, she peeks outside and sees a crowd of Amazons punishing a girl for speaking with Sam. The smiling beauties prove to be ruthless, but Nora decides not to intervene. She wants her daughter to be safe, and for that she is willing to play by their rules. Sarah finds a truck and the group continues their journey to San Francisco. Despite Yoro and Allison's attempt to escape naturally, tensions rise further. Sarah no longer trusts her companions, leading to another disaster. She falls asleep at the wheel and the vehicle veers off the road. After exiting the crash, Allison tries to find Sarah, but she is no longer in the driver's seat. Instead, a convoy of military vehicles appears nearby, and they have nothing to do with the White House. Jennifer is informed of the incident, as well as the fact that among the fugitives there was a man. Meanwhile, the president struggles to deflect suspicion from his son. Yoro regains consciousness in an unfamiliar house, in a bed beside an equally unknown woman. Rising, he goes in search of his monkey, but instead encounters the people who brought him to that place. The ranch inhabitants seem quite peaceful, yet refuse to say where his companions are. Meanwhile, the girls wake in a jail cell, completely unconscious of where they are or how to escape. Jennifer addresses the surviving city residents, urging them to accept the evacuation and not incite chaos among the crowd. The president sees a familiar face, Bet, his son's girlfriend, who all this time had been in a hospital. As Jennifer speaks with Bet, Kimberly continues secretly persuading Regina to overthrow the usurper and take her place. Despite the friendly atmosphere, Yoro is not freed. On the contrary, he is thrown into a cell with the girls so that the community can decide what to do with the prisoners. Meanwhile, darker news arrives. A new strain of influenza has been discovered in Greece. Jennifer immediately throws herself into this new crisis, but she also faces another problem. Mara appears in the command center, demanding to know if the rumors about a certain someone waiting in the cell are true. The wait becomes unbearable and tensions burst again. Yoro and Sarah end up fighting, but the argument ends quickly when the heavy door opens and a woman from the settlement enters. She informs the prisoners they may stay until Sarah recovers. Afterwards, they will be escorted out of the city so they can continue their journey to San Francisco. The ranch residents provide Sam with a separate dormitory. Before falling asleep, she warns Yoro to stay alert and trust no one. But Yoro is convinced Sam is exaggerating the danger. The ranch seems lively, everyone friendly, and they have abundant food, electricity, and water, luxuries rare nowadays in most regions. Meanwhile, Mara's pain becomes unbearable. She climbs to the rooftop and steps into the void, hoping to reunite with her husband and children. She leaves a note for her daughter, apologizing and encouraging her to be strong. At the same time, Bet returns to the city, but instead of going back to her friends as she told Jennifer she would, she heads straight to a rebel truck and joins a group planning an assault on the White House. Back at Roxanne's commune, Kate, one of the Amazons, tries to leave the group, but Roxanne reminds her of the harsh rules by shooting the fleeing girl in the back. However, Roxanne doesn't confess this to the others. She frames the incident as an attack by nomads to prevent further desertions. Roxanne orders everyone into intensive firearms training and plans to expel the guests. Nora learns of this from a member and runs to Roxanne, begging that she and Mackenzie be allowed to stay. No amount of pleading works. Roxanne gives Nora and her daughter a few more days, after which they must leave the commune. Roxanne recalls how she found this place and built the Amazon community from day one, the only leader they have ever known. Nothing has changed since then. Roxanne continues dictating rules and convinces the residents that beyond her protection lies only danger and death. Every day, she holds meetings in which the women must recall the worst actions of men and reinforce the idea that Roxanne is their sole source of safety. Sam is forbidden to attend these meetings and begins preparing to leave, planning to occupy the guest houses by the lake and start her own community. But Jiro has already begun falling under Roxanne's influence and is no longer sure she wants to leave. Roxanne witnesses an emotional confrontation between Hiro and Sam, seizing the opportunity to manipulate Hiro once more, convincing her that not even a real man should speak to her that way. In the end, the friends separate, and that night Roxanne expels Sam, allowing her to take a bit of food in the morning. Roxanne does not tell Jiro that she was the one who let Sam go. Instead, she does everything possible to console the girl, even throwing a farewell party celebrating the departure of all things masculine. The joyous noise of the party drowns out Nora's hatred. She never fits in with the group, and in revenge sets fire to the mall while everyone sleeps. The Amazons survive, but their supplies are destroyed. Nora hides her satisfaction behind a mask of sorrow. Content with her actions, Nora prepares for a nighttime escape. She heads to the forest to check her supplies, but instead finds a police car by the river filled with bodies. It becomes clear that Roxanne is not who she claims to be, and Nora decides to use this information to her advantage. Choosing a moment when Roxanne is alone, Nora confronts her about what she discovered. Roxanne promises to keep silent in exchange for privileges. She and her daughter must always have the best food, protection, and shelter. But Nora offers more than just silence. She promises to help Roxanne maintain control over the group, even after the loss of supplies, ensuring people will not abandon her. Roxanne accepts Nora's terms. She gathers her followers and delivers a powerful, fiery speech, promising they will overcome all difficulties and conquer the world. Meanwhile, Sarah slowly recovers and even resumes her training, though she continues to suffer hallucinations and visions. Despite this, she keeps a close watch on Yoro, who seems to have once again let down his guard and placed too much trust in the villagers. Sarah's suspicions grow when one of the villagers approaches her with suspicious questions about a device found in the wrecked vehicle. Sarah refuses to reveal what it is, but clearly does not want Yoro to know. On Roxanne's orders, Jiro finds yet another settlement, a group of women who have created a monument to honor the memory of men, hiding under the pretense of protecting women's rights. Roxanne organizes a raid to steal food and supplies from this city of memory. The Amazon leader unleashes hell on the inhabitants, but Nora quickly realizes something is wrong. Instead of simply taking food and water, the savages are destroying everything frantically. Nora dislikes what she sees and tries to reason with Roxanne, but the deranged leader insists this is the right path. Fully recovered from her illness, Regina Oliver prepares to overthrow Jennifer Brown. She orders her allies to be ready for a coup in 30 minutes. Seeking additional support, Regina turns to Kimberly, but after her mother's death, Kimberly has lost her zeal and no longer wants to join the rebellion. Meanwhile, beneath the government building, Bet's team places explosives. Jennifer Brown is summoned to the command center and accused of hiding information about Yoro to protect her pregnant aide. Jennifer is forced to confess, admitting her son survived and revealing he was sent to a geneticist in hopes of saving humanity, though no one knows if he reached his destination. Even those who supported Jennifer the day before now side with Regina, demanding the liar resign and hand power to the true president. But the discussion is cut short when an explosion shakes the building. Intruders have broken in. The rebels, led by Bet, storm the building through underground tunnels, confronting politicians. The Presidential Security Service is forced to lay down arms and surrender. Jennifer recognizes Bet despite her balaclava, but the girl signals her to stay silent and not expose her. Regina's desire to be president vanishes the moment danger appears. Thus, Jennifer Brown must take responsibility and negotiate with the rebels, answering their demands. The rebels lead the hostages out of the control center, hoping to leave the building without encountering the people of the City of Memory. At that moment, Regina asserts she is the legitimate president and everyone must obey her. In a fit of rage, she accuses her former allies, including Kimberly, of treason, and as a coup de grace announces that Jennifer Brown's son is alive. One of the rebels silences the hysterical woman with a shot to the forehead. But the damage is done. Her words were spoken, and most importantly, the rebels' plans now lie in chaos. Meanwhile, Yoro's prolonged stay in the settlement causes problems. Women starved for male attention begin hunting him, hoping to spend time with the last surviving man. Seizing a moment when Yoro is distracted and Allison is socializing with locals, Sarah slips into the forest to destroy the beacon that has been transmitting his location all this time. The rebels failed to evacuate the hostages in time. A second rival faction releases tear gas through the ventilation system. Shots ring out in the corridors. People scatter in panic, and those who do not escape in time fall dead to the floor. Bet secretly removes Jennifer's handcuffs and attempts to lead her away. The president has no time to save her pregnant aide. But Christine is not left alone. Kimberly defends her, and through the underground parking lot, the girls manage to reach an exit. In the city of memory, among her personal belongings, Roxanne finds a notebook containing the names of all surviving men. Now the leader has a new objective: to hunt them down and destroy them all to free the planet. The Amazons decide to start with a young man they have seen once, the one now living in the nearby village. Nora shows Roxanne his portrait. It is none other than Yoro Brown. Bet gives Jennifer her uniform before parting. Jennifer tells the girl that Regina's words were true. Yoro is alive. Roxanne and Nora set out to find the village where they believe the surviving man is hiding. But sensing danger, Sarah urges her companions to leave quickly. The news of their imminent departure does not please Yoro, but he is not willing to argue with the agent. Roxanne has already located the estate and is preparing her squad to attack in a few hours. During a meeting, two nomads burst into Roxanne's camp. Thanks to them, Jiro learns of the president's death, not knowing the title did not belong to her mother. The president can no longer remain in the city where her hunt has begun. That night, Sam sneaks into Jennifer's house. The woman recognizes immediately her daughter's friend, and together they try to escape, but the house is surrounded. Christiane and Kimberly find refuge in an abandoned barn. Waking early in the morning, Kimberly tells her friend she knows how they can all be saved. They need Yoro to continue the human race. Yoro apparently agrees. That night, he sleeps with one of the village's women who for a long time had had her sights set on him. His idol shatters when the crazed Amazons, led by Roxanne, storm the village streets demanding the surrender of the man. Sarah wakes with a start at the sound of gunfire. She orders Yoro's new girlfriend to get him out of the house while she stays behind to fend off the attack. Realizing they are drastically outnumbered, Sarah emerges with her hands raised, feigning fear, and pulls the local trans man forward, passing him off as the true survivor. A fierce gun battle erupts on the main street. The sounds of gunfire distract Roxanne's convoy, and Sarah uses the moment to disarm her enemies and escape. Even little Mackenzie joins the fight, trying to prove to Roxanne that she deserves her place in the commune. Meanwhile, Jiro catches up with the fugitives and shoots until Yoro turns around, recognizing his sister. Jiro freezes, but Yoro's girlfriend, unaware of their familial connection, shoots Jiro. Wounded, Jiro manages to tell her brother of their mother's death and warn him that the Amazons intend to destroy him. She urges Yoro to flee and to buy time, kills one of her own armed sisters. The gunfight in the city continues, but unexpectedly, Nora raises her hands and steps into the center, declaring her surrender. This enrages Roxanne, but once they leave, Jiro is alive. This gives the women renewed strength, and upon returning to her camp, Nora decides to overthrow Roxanne and open the girl's eyes to the truth. But words alone do not work. Roxanne continues to provoke Nora until Nora shoots her in the chest. The stunned Amazons raise their weapons, but Nora quickly finds words of comfort for them. Jiro stands by her side, supporting her, and from that moment the community has a new leader. Sarah walks for miles and finally finds Yoro and Allison, who is devastated, feeling she has lost everyone she loved and has no reason to live. Hearing her friend's pain, Sarah confides in Yoro that she understands him better than he thinks. She too lost her parents in childhood. Then she tells Yoro that if he wishes he can go away. She had been following Jennifer's orders, and now that Jennifer is presumed dead, their agreement is technically null. But Yoro refuses. He asks Sarah to be his trainer so that he could stop being a burden and learn to protect himself. Meanwhile, Jennifer, Bet, and Sam find themselves locked in an empty room under surveillance cameras. Unaware they have been captured by Sarah's former superior in the Secret Service, following the beacon's signal. Sarah leads her friends to a refueled vehicle which, besides gasoline, contains everything necessary for the scientific investigation and a map with the marked route. Where it will lead them, for now, that remains a mystery.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.